Valentine's Day is coming, so I took one of my beaded dancers and gave her just a little more heart. Hi, this is Tweek. I'm going to tweak one of my own designs, so let's get to it. Bead projects with me always start with the bead, and when I found these heart beads that have a little bit of gold foil in them, I thought there's an idea to tweak the little dancers that I had made. And the best way I can show you how I made her is to dismantle her. Now, don't worry, it's not going to hurt, but then you can see exactly what I used to put her together. When I do a bead project, I gather up my beads, as you can see here, and then I see what works. So for me, the most important part was the initial heart bead. A lot of different beads I've made. We've got pink, you can find clear, you can find these that have color in them, and then you can even go with plastic, because these are glass beads. Plastic is really pretty too. And I found this bead and I thought, there's where we're going. So we're going to begin with a piece of wire that's a little over 12 inches on each side. This is a little more than I need, but I usually like to go with more than less. And I'm going to put her legs on first. Each leg is a 4-inch pin, and I'll show you how I did that. Push it through. There's a bead between, a little bead holding the two legs apart a little bit to give them some movement. And that's the start. Two little legs hanging down on the wire. Dude, ready to dance. And here's how I made them. I took a 4-inch pin. Throughout this project, I'm going to need 3 4-inch pins. Take the 4-inch pin and we find a bead that represents a foot, as you can see here. And so I'm using a teardrop bead. And I would put the foot or the skinny end down so it looks more like a foot. Then I'd add a couple of cap beads. Here again, just use what you have around. Let's see where I'm going to go with silver right now. Okay, you can silver, gold. And then I'm going to add one more thing just because I think a little hint. We've got just a little piece. You could use some of these beads here. So I want it to look like a slipper. And then we bead it up to the top with whatever color you're using. In this case, I used red. And you just get your, I believe these are 4mm beads. You could use bigger ones if you want. I'm trying to go for a delicate look, so I want my dancers to be a little on the lanky side. And see how it's a little bit longer? I'm going to pull one back. So whatever this is here, you decide you're going to go a couple inches. I could count up the beads. It doesn't really matter if they're a little longer or a little shorter. And I've got all this left. So what I'm going to do is pull off some of that. Just cut off some of that. And I'm going to take this end here and I'm going to curl it. I just want a nice curled spot for the wire. Getting better at my curling. So there you have a leg. And you'd make 2 of those. Okay, so I'm going to go with the one that I had made up for my dancer here. So we have 2 legs. Okay, I used the same beads for the legs, the 4mm beads. And I made a little teeny half cluster. If you want to see how to make a half cluster, we've done these before, and a video link is below, so you can see how do you make a half cluster. Depending on the size bead, depends how big the cluster is going to be. So I wanted a little teeny one to fit inside the bigger one. And this is just, I wanted the red, the vibrant red. So first thing I want to do is, I've got the legs on the wire. Now I'm going to put a bead here just to give them just a little bit of stability, I think. I don't want them flopping around on the inside, but they're still going to have a lot of movement. Got that there. And now I'm going to hide that bead with this little cluster. Little half cluster. And see how it caps over the bead? You see a little bit of the wire hanging out, but that's okay. And when I start moving these, the legs are independent. They can move around a little bit. That's kind of fun. And now I'm going to use this bigger cluster ball. to go over the top, and so the little one sets in the big one. So now I've got a full skirt for my dancer, and I love, if you get these in the light, you see light all the way through the red. That's really pretty. Now there's a lot of room in that right there. So I'm going to take another bead. Now this happens to be a bicone bead, so it's on either end it's more of a triangular shape, but it fits into the space really well. And what it does is it makes the wire stop moving in the space, and I like that. It gives her a little more security. Then I'm going to cover that space up with a cap bead. So gather up your cap beads and see what you've got to play with. So I've got a cap bead here, and that acts kind of, I see it more as the top of her skirt or her waist. And to augment her waist, we're going to take one of these really pretty beads, and we'll let that fall down, and there you have a waist. See how she's becoming more like a dancer? Yeah, like it. Now, to give the heart a place, this heart represents her bodice, and to give her heart a place to nestle, I'll take another cap bead, and I'm going to put it upside down so that it will sit into that bead I just put down. And then the heart bead nestles into that. These heart beads too, they're a little bit they're a little bit uneven. You know, this is glass, and they cut it off and they make it, but there's just enough wiggle room there that it can nestle. It might move a little bit, but that's okay. That's what the dancer does. She moves. Now, how am I going to attach her head and her arms? To do that, I usually just use a bead again to make the wire a little less wiggly in there, and to give a little bit of a space where her shoulders and her arms can sit. So I'm using just a little teeny teardrop bead. You could use a circular bead, but you want a bead that's going to fit into that spot in the heart. Okay, now we're going to make the arms. They come next. So to make her arms, I'm going to use the 4-inch pin. And it's a head pin, so when I string the beads upon it, it will not fall off. So I'm going to use a couple of bicone beads just because I want a hand. I'll try to get it to look more like a hand. And then I'm going to just decorate it with some cuffs. So I'm going to give it a little tiny bit of bling there. And then I'm going to use one of my bead caps and let it sit like that. So I'm trying to make a fancy looking cuff. And now because I have a 4-inch pin, I need 9 of these red beads on each side. So I'm going to go ahead and load up the arm. This one pin represents both sides, both arms. Okay, so we've got the hand, a little bit of a cuff, however you want to decorate it, and then 9 pins. Now I'm going to take my curling tool here, and I'm going to set the tool right next to, I don't want a little teeny hole, I want a bigger curl. I'm going to go part way up through the tool. It's touching, just barely touching. And I'm just going to bring this around, okay? And then bring it up. I created a place for the arm to sit when I set it down on the dancer. So if I did that with not too big of a hole there, it's just one time around. Now I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to fill it up with 9 more of the red beads. Well, that might be pretty in a stripy pattern. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now we have 9, and now we're going to go backwards with what we did there. The round pretty one, and then we had another. There's just that much left here. And what I'm going to do is just curl it over. Actually, there's a little tiniest bit there I'm going to take off. And then I'm going to, here you are. I'm just going to curl this piece over. So it's just going to lay on her hand. And that's going to keep everything on the arm. I probably could have cut a little more off there, but there we have her arms. See, we can pose them, we can bend them. Okay, so here's the arm that I had for her. That's what we have so far. The skirt, the bodice, a little bit of an area for a neck, but it's mostly to let the arms sit Put the 2 wires through. We have our arms. Okay, now we don't want to see that, so I'm going to use another bigger bead cap, and it's round. Oh, I love how they move. And what I'm going to do is press this down onto the form. So I'm just squishing it. Think of it like a sandwich. Hold tight on 2, and you end up with like a collar. And you can see that she's a little more tight now as I put pressure there. She's becoming a little more solid. Line things up there. She's still going to have movement. Okay, well, to keep that going, that's a pretty collar, but I would like a little bit of another bead cap, and this is to cradle her head. So see how it sits on top of her collar? Her collar should fit on the top of the heart, like that. And now we put her head on. The bead head, that's your choice, because there's very pretty other beads of different sizes and shapes that would work. I'm going with a round one. And now, just because she doesn't have hair, I'm going to give a little representation of hair. So I'm going to put down a cap. See how it's a little bit different? See how she's just getting fancier, isn't she? And then we're going to put a bigger one of these beads. I think of this as a crown or just a decoration, but I feel like it finishes off her head. And then I put another bead cap. This time it's going up instead of down, but it's going to cradle in there. And then just a bead on the top. You could use any color. I'm going with red again, because this dancer's really got red on her. And here's where I want to make sure everything's lined up. I'm pushing down really hard to keep everything tight. What's kind of fun now is you start getting an idea of how she's going to move. Isn't that fun? She's so pretty. And now I'm going to put a crimp bead right there next to her head. Crimp beads, I know I've got some of those kicking around. And here's one. Now, because I would like to give her a place to hang, I've got too much wire here. I can see right about how much I need, so I'm going to give this a cut. And I've got the crimp bead sitting on her hat or crown, and I'm just going to take this and push these 2 wires back through the crimp bead. Try to get them a little farther, like get them into the little crown or hat bead. There it goes. If I could get it into her head, that would even be more secure. Sometimes it's hard to get through that many beads. So I'm in there and I'm pulling this up to keep her body intact. Make sure I get it tight. Okay, I'm feeling good about that. I'm going to take my tool and crimp it good, pulling up on the wire that holds her body together. Her legs are independent, making sure that they are sitting next to the bead that holds them separate from each other. There we go. Can't really see them, but it changes how her legs move. And then what you can do too is, well, if I get her going, she really spins, which I didn't suspect that she would do that. But then you can move the legs too. Like, let's say you wanted to position one leg up more. And you can move her arms. I want to put one up. Yay! Isn't she pretty? There you have it. She's ready to dance. See you again. If you enjoyed this video, here's another you may like. And here's a playlist of other projects that you might enjoy.